Yeah, welcome and welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Gonna switch it up from our usual topics of the NBA, even though there's stuff still going on in the NBA, and we're getting closer and closer to football season. So definitely gonna talk some NFL, and we're gonna talk about the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley, and the running back position. All right, so before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, please go ahead, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search button, and go ahead, do a search. We should come right up. If you're here on YouTube, hopefully you are. Make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be kept up to date whenever new episodes of the show drop. You know what else to do. Make sure you share the podcast with your friends, family, enemies, whoever else, anyone you know that loves sports talk and might want to hear a different voice. All right. Please go ahead and give us that 5-star review. We definitely need that. It helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. Now let's get right to it. The running back position in the NFL, it's been a big topic of discussion this offseason as we go on, and the time to work out a long-term contracts with players is now over. So if you got a guy franchised, either he plays under the franchise tag or he holds out and waits for next season to try to get a deal done. But I guess the biggest name in that situation, well, there's a couple. This past season's NFL rushing leader, Josh Jacobs, running back from the Las Vegas Raiders. And of course, New York Giants star running back Saquon Barkley, who's kind of, I guess, the biggest name. And a big part of that, I'm sure, is playing for the New York Giants in the New York media market. But this is, I guess, kind of it's a problem, right? Because we know that in the 80s and the 90s, pretty much for the entire existence of the game of American football up until maybe 15 years ago, the game has really been predicated on running the football, right? And what do we always say here on the Format Podcast? You want to win? Run the ball, stop the run, right? We say that all the time. Run the ball, stop the run. This may be old school, but it's a truism. And if you can do that with regularity, you're going to win a lot of games in the NFL. Now we know that the glamour positions, quarterback, wide receiver, and of course the positions that lend to those guys having success, offensive tackle, and then pass rusher on the other side. You know, if you can protect the quarterback and you have a quarterback that can do things, and then you have a guy that can go get the quarterback, you got a lot of opportunity to really be successful in the modern NFL with the way they're throwing the football. However, again, you have to be able to run the football on all levels of football, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's NFL. Yes, we're seeing more and more pass-happy offenses, but at the end of the day, if you can run the football, because let's be honest, there are times when you need to run the football, right? And if you can do that effectively, you can win a lot of football games. Now, we got Saquon Barkley, New York Giants. Last year, he won Comeback Player of the Year in the NFL, and he rushed for, I want to say, a career high, 1,312 yards, 338 receiving yards. So an outstanding season, 1,650 yards from scrimmage. Outstanding season from him. Wins the AP Comeback Player of the Year award. Really outstanding. Says, okay, you know, basically he shows out in his contract year, right? But as it's reported, Saquon Barkley was looking for somewhere around $16 million a year, and the Giants were looking at 13 or 14. Now, if it's me, of course, I don't have any real money, but if it's me, and you don't want to count guys' pockets, but at the same time, we're talking about this, the numbers are out there. I think that 13 million a year, especially in an era where running backs are not getting paid like that, that's a pretty good deal. You'll probably be well above market value, but it is what it is. If he feels he's worth more than that, and the Giants don't want to give him that, well, then he's got to figure out what he wants to do. Now, for me, kind of how I look at that is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? So if Saquon Barkley, who has said he's considering sitting out, matter of fact, let's go ahead, let's hear that, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about it.
I say to the Giants, I say to my teammates and be like, you want me to show you my worth? You want to show you how valuable I am to the team? I won't show up. I won't play it down. And that's a play I can use. Anybody knows me, knows that's not something I want to do. But like it's something that crossed my mind. It's like I never thought I would ever do that, but like now I'm at a point where it's like, Jesus, like I might have to take it to this level.
So there you heard it. Sitting out, as in sitting out the entire year, is something that Saquon Barkley may well have to consider. in terms of him fighting to get what he deems is his proper market value. But like I was saying, before we heard his quote, I think a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Why? Because at the running back position, he's under the franchise tag. The Giants have designated him as a franchised player, and with that tag, he would make a little over $10 million this year, right? So number one, he was drafted, I think, number two overall 5 years ago. So he's made roughly $36 million in his career, which again, for a running back in the modern era, that's a lot of money, especially for a guy who has missed almost an entire season 2 years ago and then had a subpar season in his return season before really blowing up this year, right? So he's made a lot of money, but still, $10 million is $10 million. And if he decides to sit out this year, that's $10 million he's not getting back, right? That's also a year off of his prime that he's not going to get back. And in fairness, that these NFL owners are looking for every reason and every way not to pay running backs. So a year older, a year out of a year that you lost in your prime, why would you do that? Now, I get it if you think you're making some type of statement, but $10 million, $10 million that you won't see again. We know that years ago, Le'Veon Bell, he was looking for a new deal from the Steelers. They didn't want to give it to him. So he sat out and, well, he didn't get it. He ended up missing a whole year. And he's on the record saying that that was a bad decision that he made. He ends up going to the Jets and he got paid, but that was pretty much the end of his career as an All-Pro. And I think there's something to that. Now, if your whole entire thing is about getting every single penny that you can get, hey, fine, cool, do that. But well, you know what? Even if it is about getting every single penny that you can get, you're not going to get it by sitting out a year. You're going to miss that. And here's the other problem. If you sit out a year and come back, you're still franchised. You're not a free agent, Saquon. They just franchised you again. So what did you gain? You missed a year, you missed $10 million, and then you're still under the franchise tag. So what did you really gain? And you had to pay all those fines for missing the whole year. So, like, what are you really gaining from that? Like, I understand the premise of fighting for what you think you're worth and maybe making it better for those who are going to come after you. But if you're really about your money, it seems counterproductive for me to sit out. Now, I know why Saquon is frustrated. His quarterback, Daniel Jones, just had a career year, which really wasn't that great. I think he had like 15 touchdown passes in 17 games, right? Not elite at all, but I think he ended up getting like $46 million a year with his new contract. The problem there is Saquon knows, like, this guy can't do anything without me, right? Because the Giants last year were 8-2 when Saquon Barkley got 80 or more rushing yards, right? Okay. They were 7-2 when he had 100 or more yards from scrimmage. Now, remember, we talked about it. He had 1,650 scrimmage yards this past season. So this is a guy who can be a huge contributor in the offense. I want to say he contributed over 20% of the offensive production of this team. So Saquon knows, like, hey, you guys need me. But at the same time, the NFL is the NFL. It will go on. And kind of the problem with the running back position, even though Saquon is special, they can always find another one who can at least be a reasonable facsimile of what you provide, right? And we see that if the system is good enough, it can be done. We see that in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. Realistically, we saw that 20 years ago in Denver with his dad, Mike Shanahan, right? Mike Anderson, Alandis Gary. After, the Hall of Fame running back, I can't remember his name, but the Hall of Fame running back from Denver there, after he retired, then we saw a number of, let's say, less than big name running backs come in and continue to put up 1,000 rushing yards in Mike Shanahan's scheme. So what that started to show owners was, wait a minute, we don't necessarily need to pay big money to big name running backs when there are guys all over the place who are just looking for an opportunity. We can pay them less, we can use them up for a few years, and when they're done, we basically discard them on the trash heap and get another one. And I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's good, but realistically, that's what it is, and that's how these owners see it. And especially in a league where passing and quarterbacks and receivers and tackles are the ones who really move the needle, well, running backs are, I'm not going to say they're less important, because again, run the ball, stop the run, but they are a position that owners are not willing to pay the same way as they paid in the past. And so I'm trying to figure out what Saquon is going to do. I'm sure he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. If it's me, I absolutely don't sit out because, again, that's $10 million you're going to miss out on that you never get back. And you're going to be franchised again next season. So there's really no point in that. So I say come in, get busy. Hopefully the Giants, who are generally and historically a well-run organization, will reward you at some point. Now, maybe you need to come down off of what you think that you're worth. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the nature of business. When we talk about, like, I was arguing with guys for years, and I've done shows on this about Dak Prescott being overpaid, right? But they always told me, hey, the market, you're worth on the market what the market says you're worth. So why is it not the same for running backs, right? If the market says that running backs aren't worth what they think they're worth, then so be it, right? You can only get what the market is willing to bear for you. So there may need to be some realization on that. Now, unless the NFL decides they're going to maybe think about doing some type of different collective bargaining or some type of different salary cap structure or whatever for running backs, or they do a completely separate one for quarterbacks since they're making all the money, and then everyone else can kind of work and possibly be better compensated under a different one. That's possible. Now the owners are probably not going to want to do that because they don't want to pay any more than they have to. But it's just interesting, man. And you got some really outstanding guys. Like I mentioned, Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing this past season. Saquon Barkley, all around stud. Austin Eckler, all around stud for the Chargers. I mean, you got guys that definitely deserve more. You have coming up next season, Jonathan Taylor, who, if you watch the show, you know that's my guy. I've been a fan of his since Wisconsin. Absolute workhorse back. Not this past season because he had some nagging injuries, and this was the first time since, I'm going to say, he never missed a game in high school, never missed a game in college, never even missed a practice. This past year, he had some nagging injuries, and so this is his first time that he hasn't had 1,000 yards in many years. And 2 years ago, we saw him when Derrick Henry went out. He rushed for almost 1,900 yards. He was first team All-Pro. This is a guy at the running back position who certainly deserves to get paid, but with the nature of the running back position, he probably will not. We're going to see what happens to him. So very curious to see what goes on in there. But I guess what I want to know from you is Saquon Barkley. Do you think he should sit out, or do you think he should come in, sign his franchise tender, get paid the $10 million, ball out, and then see what happens after the season? Leave your comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear them. Can't wait to get back to you next time. And I'm out. Peace.